welcome back to Boots and Bounty Homestead. And today we are still going to do our sourdough starter recipes. As I'm doing them, you guys are coming along. So a lot of these recipes are the first time I'm ever doing them. I have done a couple that I will do with you a little bit later on. Just because we're not at a season that we need those items yet. So those will be coming soon. But for today, we are going to be making what is called Parker House rolls. These are going to be similar to big, fluffy, like Texas Roadhouse rolls, or fluffy, like tall Sister Schubert kind of rolls. That's the kind of flavor that they are going to have, somewhere between those, that yeasty, sweet kind of roll. And so I have saved up my sourdough starter. I fed it the last 2 days, and I've gotten enough starter together for this recipe. And here it is. I'm able to use all of this starter if I need to, because I've got the mother starter in the refrigerator, because I am actually making a loaf of bread right now, and we're going to do the rolls for supper tonight. Now with this recipe, you do have to plan on 2 rises that are 2 hours long, so you've got to plan at least 4 hours ahead of time, plus 35 to 40 minute cook time. Okay, so sourdough stuff is not something you can just slap together and throw in the oven within an hour. Some recipes are, but in order to get that true sourdough flavor, you've got to let it do multiple rises so it can allow time to ferment and to get that slightly sourdough taste. Now, with that being said, it is about 1:30. And I'm on my lunch break, so I'm going to do the recipe because it takes 2 hours to do the first rise. And that's going to be about the time I'm getting off. And so then I can do the second rise. And it's going to fall within about the 6 o'clock time frame that they will be cooked and done for us to eat. Give or take a little bit, give or take a few minutes. My house is kind of warm today since I am baking, and it's almost 70 degrees outside. So this may not even take as long to rise. So you've got to kind of watch it and just make sure that it's just not going to run out of your pans, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and put the recipe down below in the description box, so that way you guys can print it off and do this recipe later on if you want to. If you want to learn how I started my starter and how to make bread, I have already put out those 2 videos. You can go back and watch those at any time. If you want to follow along with my journey, go ahead and subscribe, hit the thumbs up to let YouTube know that you like my content, and let's get baking. So if you look at the recipe down below in the description, you can follow along with me. We're going to need 1.5 cups of our sourdough starter, which this will be once the bubbles deflate. It'll be like down to here, which is almost 2 cups, because a quart would be 4 cups, and it's almost half of that quart. And then it also calls for 1 cup of buttermilk, which I do not carry buttermilk, so I'm going to make my own. And a tip for buttermilk, making your own, is 1 cup of regular sweet milk or regular milk, and 1 tablespoon of either white vinegar or a tablespoon of lemon juice. What you're going to do is you're going to mix those 2 ingredients together and let it sit undisturbed for 5 minutes. It's going to form this little soured, clotted milk form on top, and that is to mimic what it does for buttermilk. And so that's a neat little trick that you can keep in your books for later. We also need 8 tablespoons or 1 stick of butter, 2 tablespoons of honey, 2 teaspoons of salt, 2 eggs, and 3 1/4 cup of white flour. Now let's go ahead and put our wet ingredients together. So I've got to make my buttermilk first, and then we will put those wet ingredients together. Quick wardrobe change because it's getting hot in here with this stove being 450 degrees. Alright, so I've got my buttermilk sitting here, and I'm such a poor planner. My butter is frozen, so I'm going to let it warm up in a pot here. We are going to melt. Now, it does say 8 tablespoons of butter, and we use half now, half later. So we're going to melt 4 tablespoons of butter in the pan and then save the other 4 to brush on top of the rolls after they are done cooking. So to a little pan, I have added 4 tablespoons of butter and 2 teaspoons of salt. And then we've got to add 2 tablespoons of honey and our 1 cup of buttermilk, which has been sitting here while the butter melted, marinating. So let's get it all put together, stir it up, and just warmed up. We don't want this cooking. Okay, so to our butter, I've added the 2 teaspoons of salt, and then we're going to add our buttermilk. And it is good and clabbered. Y'all see that sticking to the side? I did lemon juice in mine. Worked really, really well. And then we're going to add 2 tablespoons of honey, which is all that I have left in this jar. So I'm just going to go ahead and finish it out. Okay, so we're just going to heat this until we feel that the honey has dissolved in with the butter and the milk. Go ahead and cut this off. We've had it on low, so go ahead and cut it off and get it mixed in together. Okay, let's go ahead and set it off the eye. All right, I do believe that it is well dissolved now. Okay, let's go ahead and pour this into whatever mixture, whatever bowl we are going to use to mix all of our dough in. So I've got my big glass bowl here that I like to make my dough in because it has plenty of room for it to rise in. We're going to go ahead and pour our mixture into it. And this is not a mixture that you want very hot because you don't want to heat the honey up over 100 degrees. So that way you're not destroying all the health benefits. Okay, so to this we are going to add our 2 eggs, and I'm going to go ahead and beat these up. Now I want you to touch your mixture. Okay, if it's any hotter than what you would do like a baby bottle, or if it's hot to touch, you need to let it cool down. Because this part right here can actually cook your eggs if you are not careful. Now if it's a little hotter, like if you touch it and you don't really feel it, it's body temperature. If you touch it, it's in a little bit warm, it's probably about 100 degrees. If it's any hotter than that, it will cook these eggs. So you need to temper these eggs, which means pour a little bit of this into your eggs and mix it up so you can warm the eggs up, and then pour that into it so it doesn't cook it. So that's why we need to heat this mixture on low, so that way it doesn't cook our eggs and it doesn't destroy the honey. So now that I've got our eggs beaten up, we are going to slowly add them to this, and I'm going to just stir as I pour it in. And that is mixing well. Now I need to measure out my sourdough starter. I'm just going to use what I had it in the buttermilk. Okay, so let's measure this out. We need 1.5 cups. So let's see. I'm probably going to have that plus some. Yeah, I'll have that plus some. Let me go ahead and pour this in there first. I'm going to keep it the way it says. I'm going to try to not go all rogue on us here. Don't want to be eyeballing it or nothing. I'm trying to stick to the recipe. And the reason why you want to put your sourdough into the wet mixture is so that whenever you put your flour in it, it doesn't get all clumpy, and you have some mixtures of sourdough and some not, or some of flour and none of sourdough. So that's why we want to go ahead and mix this in and get it dissolved with the liquids. Okay. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and mix our sourdough up. And it's already bubbling because it's eating the sugar out of the honey. Yeast loves sugar as well as the flour, because the flour turns to sugar. So let's get this all mixed up. Now we need 3 1/4 cup of flour to go in here, and then save the other half set to the side. So to this, we're going to start adding the 3 1/4 cup of flour. I'm going to go ahead and bring out my dough hook for this, so it can stir and incorporate that flour slowly. Alright, so here is the first cup of flour. And I like to slowly add it so I'm not just killing myself trying to incorporate it all at once. One more full one. And I'll go ahead and add the 1/4 now. Okay, guys, so with the other 1/2 cup of flour, we are going to sprinkle on the counter, and then that's going to further incorporate the rest of the flour into the dough, and we're going to have to knead it until it gets smooth. Okay, guys, no shame in my game. I'm fixing to put this thing in a stand mixer and add the 1/2 cup of flour, and I'm going to use the dough hook. I've got to get my dough hook out. And I'm going to use the dough hook and just let it knead it for between 5 to 10 minutes. Now, if you're a person that wants to feel their dough, you've got to knead it until it is smooth, like Play-Doh. Okay? You're going for that Play-Doh texture. Now, in here, I'm going to be able to check it. I'm going to let it run for about 5 minutes, and then I'm going to check it. It should be like Play-Doh, like teacher putty, but not so hard that you can't do a whole lot with it. And it should not stick to your fingers. Now, the way it is now, it does, but we've still got to add that other 1/2 cup of flour to it. Get that all incorporated, and then it's going to stiffen up a little bit. So I'll show you the process of me doing this. Now, if you're going to knead it on a floured surface, you'll have to do the folding over and then back, push up, and as you do it, you know, side, front, back, or however you want to do it, you'll have to do that until you get all that flour mixed in. It's a good arm workout. I'm not looking for that today. I'm looking for rolls. So we are going to use our stand mixer and get this mixed up. Okay, so to this, I'm going to go ahead. Let me turn the light on. It got cloudy outside. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and add this 1/2 cup of flour into the bottom, so that way it doesn't technically stick from the beginning, and it'll kind of help it to sit on that dough, and then as the dough turns it, it will incorporate it a little bit at a time instead of all being on top and it getting swirled into the middle, if that makes sense. It's going from the outside in, being turned in that way, instead of just being right there on top and mixed in the middle. So let me get the dough in here. This should come off the sides fairly easy. Sorry, it ain't no pretty way to do this. Alright, dough hook. Lower it down, lock it down, and then I'm going to start out kind of low, let it get going, and then I'm going to put it on probably, I think I usually run it about 3, no, probably no higher than 4, but I'll look and tell you real quick once I get to that point. So let's just turn it on stir and let it get going, and then we'll turn it up. Okay, so it has picked up all the flour in the bottom. I'm going to go ahead and turn it up to about right there. And I think that's on 3. It's the 3rd click. You'll know when it's ready whenever it pulls away from the walls. So it all pulled away at first, and then it all stuck back. So we're going to do this for about 10 minutes, but I'm going to start checking after 5. Alright guys, it's been about 8 minutes. Okay, let's unlock it. And see, it's smooth, running off of the dough hook. Looks really good. It should come off fairly easy without sticking too much to me. As long as the hook doesn't come off. Yeah, comes right off. Now, from this stage, we want to go ahead and grease a bowl. So let me get that. Y'all will have to excuse my dirty kitchen today. We're making a lot of bread around here. Okay, so I've got a bowl here that I am going to let my dough rise in. And it's a fairly big bowl because this stuff should probably fill this whole bowl up after it rises. So now we're going to pour this into here and cover it and let it rise for 2 hours. Now, since I have my stove on and it's so warm in here, it's probably not going to take 2 hours. I'm going to check it at about 1.5 hours, and then we'll go ahead and go down to our next step. But this is just going to allow it to rest and rise and develop the yeast and gluten that it needs to in order to make these rolls super, super delicious. And it's going to do a little extra fermentation for the taste. Now, you can taste the dough right now if you want to. It's a little sweet, little sour. Just don't eat a whole lot of it because it is raw dough and you got to cook raw flour and it's got eggs in it, and you know the drill. So you can taste it if you want to a little bit. But we're going to set this over here near the stove. I'm not going to set it on the stove. I'm going to set it near the stove, kind of where the heat flows. And we're going to keep this warm and let it rise for 2 hours. See you then. Okay, so it's been 2 hours and the rolls are have risen very nicely. And I've gotten out a 33 by 23 by 5 centimeter. We're going to say it's like a 9 by 13. Got a pan out and I am going to spray it. You can butter it, you can grease it, you can do whatever you want to. Just put something on it. And then we've got to start dividing our dough. Okay, so here we've got our dough. I'm going to go ahead, it says to punch it down and divide it into 12 equal parts. So to punch it down, we're just going to get the air out of it. Alright, we've got to divide it into 12 equal parts. So we're just going to wing it. This dough is really sticky. I don't know if I'm going to like this because it says to form a ball. I don't see myself forming a ball from this. It may just get plopped in the pan. Oh, shoot. I'll be lucky to get this mess off my fingers. I think I need to spray my fingers. Okay, I've got me some flour here I'm going to put on my fingers. Because there ain't no way in the world I'm rolling this into a ball. And it's a dry day outside. It ain't even wet outside. Those look a hot mess, but there they are. Okay, so now we've got to let these rise for 2 hours in a warm place. Okay guys, so it's been 2 hours. Here's my rolls. They don't look too bad. Now, I've got some melted butter here from whenever we made it earlier. Whenever we melted the whole stick of butter, I poured half of it out and then kept the other half just sitting on the stove staying warm. So what we're going to do now is we've got to brush these rolls. This bowl's kind of warm. And I'm going to do it pretty heavily. So they'll be good and buttery. And you don't want to disrupt the rolls too much, because you don't want to pop any of those bubbles that are on the inside. I think the rolls are rising even more with the butter going on them because the butter's warm. Okay, I'll save the rest of it for whenever they come out of the oven. I've already got the oven preheated to 350. That's ready, and now we are fixing to stick these in the oven for 35 to 40 minutes. Okay, it's been 35 minutes. Let's take them out. Ooh-wee. Looky there. Beautiful. So now I'm going to let them rest, but I'm going to go ahead and put the rest of the butter on top of them just so it can soak in. Alright, we're going to take one of these rolls out and see what they look like. They look yummy. You cut the other light on. It's focusing on Emma. Those are really good. Oh yeah. I think they'll do. Yeah. We're going to make chicken sandwiches out of them and eat them with mashed potatoes, you know, like we used to do at school. I don't know how many of you guys used to do that. Emma's like, why would I want to eat that for supper when I have it every day at school? I said, because I haven't had it in 20 years. We got some little cheap chicken patties. Don't judge. I'm making homemade rolls. And Emma did homemade mashed potatoes. So we're going to break even and buy the chicken because it's 8:35 and we're just now eating supper. So, alright guys, so you have the recipe in the description box below. If you have a sourdough starter going and want to try these rolls, make sure they are super active. You've got to have a really super active starter for this recipe. And I have always been told this is one of the harder recipes to be able to do with sourdough. So make sure that it is very active. And try it yourself and let me know how it goes. So we'll see you next time, guys. Bye.